fact remains that growth can happen from various channels. A business owners identifies themselves equal to and directly to the business. This is me and this is my business. So if something happens to me, that will reflect on my business directly. There are four buckets under which the business owner has to view things from a growth perspective. One is sales and marketing itself, technology, automatically people. And fourth, of course, which is my favorite, is in terms of building up the right partnerships and collaborations. In today's world, today's business environment, 1+1 should become 11. So a lot of times there's a huge mismatch between what the business believes their product can do and what the product can actually do in the marketplace. That whole syndrome of मैं नहीं करूंगा तो कोई और मेरे जैसा कर नहीं सकता. It's very important for us to unlock that mindset and keep it aside and say that yes, you are the best, but you're not growing.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome yet again to Business Networking with Vipul Bondal, with me, Vipul Bondal, and I have a very good guest today. I'm sure we are all going to enjoy the conversation. He's one of my best friends, if I may say that. But not only that, he is a fantastic professional, and he does something very unique. And that's one of the reasons I have invited him here today. So the guest today is Balachandran Unni, fondly called Bala. Welcome, Bala.
Thank you so much, Vipul, for your kind words. And it's always a pleasure interacting and chatting up with you, man.
So Bala is the founder and director of GTM Support Solutions Private Limited. GTM is in the business of helping companies in their business development journey. He himself has undertaken the journey for more than 3 decades now and across geographies, and has a wide range of experience across industries. So I'll just name some of the companies he's had the experience of working with. So he's worked with Nokia, with PayPal, with 5M Global, with Mistral Mobile, Health 5C, Crores Technologies, OSEL, Dream Apps, GKS Health Stall, and so on. So as their business growth partner, he helps business owners in strategic planning and guidance, accessing his resources and networks, operational efficiency improvement, market expansion and diversification, and performance monitoring and adaptation. To me, these are all words, and what they exactly mean is what I'm going to ask Bala to explain. So Bala, over to you. Please tell us in English what these things mean.
Okay. Thank you, Vipul. Honestly speaking, as you rightly said, these are all English, and I need to explain it to you in better English. Okay.
Right.
So let me start from the beginning.
Right.
Okay. So the very fact that you mentioned my company name, from the time I moved on to becoming an entrepreneur, is GTM Support Solutions, and GTM stands for Go to Market. So the
Right.
idea, and honestly, this is a term which I sort of learned in my last stint as an employee at Nokia. Okay. So we used to have a marketing strategy, a GTM strategy, a sales strategy, and all sorts of things. So this is where I got GTM, and the idea is to see how I can help small and mid-sized business owners expand their business across various parameters, not just geography, but across various parameters. So that's the idea essentially.
Right.
And basically it's because I have been in this space, as you said, for about 20 plus years. I've been in the employment model. So I have worked for companies, as you rightly said, from an employment perspective, my last employer was Nokia, but prior to that, I have worked with a US-based company called OboPay, and then prior to that with an Infosys, group company or incubated company called OnMobile Global, and then prior to that with Rediff.com.
Right.
So these are the 4 significant large companies that I have worked with, specifically in this area of business development and business strategy, as you would call it.
When you call yourself a business growth strategist, how are you different, let's say, from a business consultant or a management consultant or a business coach? And how does the function differ from somebody who's a business coach or a business consultant?
So, Vipul, honestly speaking, when you work with a large corporation, and then when you work in a larger ecosystem, these
Right.
are all very well defined. As I said, when I was working with Nokia is when I first got to know the whole term called GTM. Okay. Prior to that, I was not aware of. But what is interesting and challenging is that to inculcate these or to incorporate these in the segment that I'm working now. So to these days, I focus more to help with small and mid-sized business owners and not the large corporations.
Right.
So that is where it becomes challenging for me to explain to people what is the difference between a business growth strategist or a business coach or a management consultant. Okay.
Right.
So let me put it this way. When you look at business growth strategist, it is basically somebody who sort of works with the business owner, understands his business, and uh, figures out a way where which area to expand from. So it is not just by saying that, oh, we need more sales, and only when we have sales we will grow. I mean, which is not a wrong thing, but fact remains that growth can happen from various channels, and identifying those challenges, focusing on those challenges, and building up on those actually helps, basically. So it could be, for example, sales and marketing itself,
Right.
monitoring your sales and marketing properly. It could be, when I normally talk to people, especially business owners, I say that, even while we all say that we need more sales and more sales leads to more growth,
Yeah.
which is, there is no disclaimer.
Right.
Vipul, in my experience over these last 10, 12 years,
Right.
what I have realized is that around 80-85% of these business owners actually get the required amount of sales.
Okay.
But because they are not able to execute it properly,
Right.
they believe that they need more sales. So
Okay.
that is where, somebody like me will sit with the business owner and figure out what is the reason why they believe, and then help them in those areas. So this is from a business growth strategy part of it. When you look at a business coach,
Okay.
essentially a coach would focus more on the business owner as an individual.
Right.
So that means basically to work around his, the way he is doing his things on an individual basis, his mindset, his attitude, his issues, personal issues, his personality issues, if I were to use the word.
Right.
So the focus is more on that, and
Wonderful.
idea is to make the business owner go through that whole process of self reflection, and sort of guide him to become a better version of his own self.
Okay.
That's the way a business coach would function.
Okay. So you don't do that. That part you don't do.
So it's very interesting.
Okay.
It's very interesting because
Or you do also, correct?
no, it's not a matter of whether I do it or don't do it, but a lot of times you land up having to do something to achieve the other objective. You get my
Uh,
point? So the idea is to influence the business owner to adopt a certain strategy to make sure that the business overall grows. So a lot of times business owners identifies themselves equal to and directly to the business. So which means this is me and this is my business. So if something happens to me, that will reflect on my business directly. Now, my idea is, can we sort of bring that gap?
can you, yeah, make sure that the business is not totally dependent, for example, on the business.
So, I think the better, I would use the word, let's say, insulated. The
Insulated.
business is insulated from the diversities of a business owner's mindset.
Okay.
Business,
So,
yeah, that way.
Bala, would it be possible for you to explain with an example, where, you've had your client with whom you worked on a long term. So maybe you need not name the client for confidentiality reasons, perhaps, but if you can give us an example of when you started with them, what happened then, how you kind of have left them at a better place, also, or,
Okay.
to whatever extent you can. So, without getting into confidential details, which I appreciate.
Let me try and sort of
Yeah.
put it in a very simplified way. So I have this client. They are big time in the services industry, and they're doing well. So the idea is, they are growing well. They are a small, I would say, essentially a small to medium sized business.
Right.
And year on year, they are doing fine. I mean, they are growing at the rate of about 10, 12, 15% is as is the normal thing, and the business owner calls me and, we had a chat and he said that, Bala, I am very clear about what I am doing and what I am achieving. Okay. As of now. But I have a vision. So I want to be 100 crore company over the next 3 years. As of now, the company is in the region of around 18 crores. Now, he said that if I grow the way I am, so in the next 4 years, I would be ideally a 40, 45 crore company. But my vision is slotted that in the next 4 years, I should be a 100 crore company. And not just that, he said, I know how to reach there.
Okay.
But my worry is if I focus my energies on, on achieving that 100 crore, my worry is, whatever is happening at the ground level right now in terms of the regular business, that should
Right.
not get shaken up. So I need some help, for somebody to put in the right processes in place and
Right.
the right monitoring solutions in place so that my current business doesn't get affected, because ultimately the foundation of that 100 crore is coming from the current 18
Current,
crores.
yeah.
So that is where then we started working on identifying the strategy, take it one by one, and then move forward.
Understood. So, it could for one company, it could be diversification. For
Right,
another company, it could be processes. For a third company, it could be technology and so on, right? So,
exactly.
anything that helps the company grow
Right.
from its current or natural progression, you take it to a different progression. Would that be the right way of?
Exactly. So, normally I tell business owners that, again, based on my experience and my areas of expertise, if I were to use,
Right.
I firmly believe that there are four buckets under which, the business owner has to view things from a growth
Right.
perspective. So, as I said in the beginning, one is sales and marketing itself as a box. Are they able to manage, monitor, maintain their sales and marketing activities, and are they getting the maximum out of the initiatives that they're driving? Second, according to me, is in terms of, for example, technology. So a lot of business owners know that today, in today's world, technology has to be a great enabler. Okay. But the problem lies with the fact, when the business owner says that, Bala, we are a small company or we are a mid-sized company, I don't have a team large enough who can sort of help me. For example, if I were to, take the example of, let's say, a manufacturer. Okay. Now today, a manufacturer knows that he needs to have a good, solid ERP solution to help him have a complete visibility of where what is happening in his business on a minute to minute basis.
Right.
But the fact remains, he says, if I focus on implementing the technology, who's going to be managing my business?
Correct.
And he says that I don't have people in my team who to whom I can sort of delegate it and say that go ahead with it. And especially technology related issues are always, there is a lot of obstacles or a lot of roadblocks which come up within the organization. So that,
Correct.
technology is the second. And third, as I said, automatically people. A lot of times what happens is when a business owner is growing,
Yeah.
he hires people more from the perspective of his immediate requirement. Okay. So which means he's hiring, whatever position, whether it's an accountant for 30,000 rupees. So he's happy that he got an accountant for 30,000 rupees.
Yeah.
But the fact remains that after 1 year, when the organization is at a different growth path, this entity or this individual is not able to cope up with that growth and contribute to that growth. And the business
Correct.
owner feels that, oh, you know what, this guy is not able to manage it. But then you chose him for the wrong purpose. It's not the fault of that individual.
Right.
So, so people. And fourth, of course, which is my favorite, is in terms of building up the right partnerships and collaborations. Because, I always say in today's world, today's business environment, 1 plus 1 should become 11 and not 2. Okay. And it'll take time, but then there are very interesting opportunities which can be created or worked upon when you look at building up the right partnerships and collaborations, essentially.
Right.
So these are the 4 buckets, if you
The
ask
four
me.
buckets.
And
So you could be working on any of those
any of
buckets or a
these.
multiple, combination of
Multiple of
buckets
these.
as
Yes,
well.
of course.
Okay.
Vipul, there's another large bucket which I'm not even talking about, but which is the finance and the funding part of it. Okay, so that's a very integral part of the business. So, I have not mentioned it not because of anything else. I don't have direct expertise, but I always work with partners. So I
Fine.
help my client manage that for them. But these are the 4 buckets which
4
is
plus 1.
required everywhere.
So 4 plus 1 is what typically need to be managed, and you are focusing on 4 of those, and the fifth one you, if
Yes.
required, you can
Yes.
always take external help to be able to help your
Yes.
client. Okay, great. So there's one question which is coming on the community here. It's from Chirag.
Okay.
Thank you, Chirag, for asking this question. So his question is, sir, when you are working with a company that's struggling to scale, what's the first thing you look at to assess and where things are going wrong? So, that somebody comes to you and is not able to tell you why they are not able to scale up. So what's the first thing that you look at is what Chirag is.
So the first thing first I look into is in terms of their sales and marketing, right? Because that's the most fundamental thing. Because only when the product or the service is actually being sold, and then comes the rest of the areas in terms of operations or in terms of technology or in terms of the other areas. So I think about 50% of the times it is the sales and marketing initiatives which we look into and see where is it lacking in terms of visibility, or lacking in terms of reach, lacking in terms of awareness. How well is the product or the service positioned in the marketplace? And are they focusing on the right target audience itself in the place? So a lot of times there's a huge mismatch between what the business believes their product can do and what the product can actually do in the marketplace. So, so it's always better to be very, very accurate in terms of figuring out that instead of going through a large segment of the market, can we focus on a very small segment and create credentials and credibility there, and then take it up to the next ones rather than going all out. So sales and marketing, answering your question, Chirag. Thank you for asking that question, Chirag.
So that's the first thing you look at. But typically, at what stage do customers call you? In your experience so far, do they call you at early stage, or do they call you, let's say after 3 or 4 years of trying out what they always believed? I mean, typically, what is the stage at which somebody reaches out to you?
Yeah, so this is interesting because so invariably, even though my background history in terms of my corporate work experience, if you look at it, I have always worked for startups. Okay. And providentially, Vipul, let me share that the 4 companies that I mentioned, in all these 4 companies, I was at a time when the company was launching their services for the first time in India. So, for example, I was with Rediff when we were launching e-commerce for the first time in India. Then I was with Infosys to launch the first mobile commerce, and then with OboPay to launch the first mobile payment solution, and finally with Nokia to launch the first mobile wallet in India. Okay. Now, the reason I'm narrating this in detail is to let you know that, when you launch something for the first time in the marketplace, first time in the country, you don't have any precedents to look up to. Okay.
Right.
And that is where, when you say business development happens, which means you are creating that ecosystem for that business to grow. Now, having said this, the question that you have asked me, there is no fixed time stage or life stage of a business where they can call upon me. But again, as I said, not by choice, but by whatever streak of luck. I have not worked for any startups directly after that. So I have always worked for companies who are, let's say, 4, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 years into the business and moving out. In fact, incidentally, I had a client with whom I was working when they were 10 years old. I worked with them for 3 years. Then we sort of parted ways. And then recently they have come back all over again after 4 years. And
Okay,
now we are engaged in a much stronger way. So that's the way it is.
interesting. Uh, okay, so I'll ask another question which is coming from Aman Bhanushali. So his question is, have you ever worked with a business that was hesitant to expand into a new market? What strategy did you suggest to help them take that leap? So any company which was hesitant to expand into a new market or into a new,
So
I think it's in general, if you have may not be a new market, but a new product, for example, something new than what they've been doing.
I remember working for an IT solutions company,
Okay.
and as companies are, they believe that their reach is only within in and around Mumbai and
Right.
outside. Not beyond Mumbai, let's say a Nasik or an Ahmednagar or Aurangabad and entities like that. Only because they believed that they will not be able to manage their people model from
Hmm.
sitting in Mumbai. And
Okay.
it took a little while for me to sort of make them understand that the new markets today across any category is the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Okay. And that is where the demand is high and the supply is not as efficient as one would want it to be. So it's an opportunity to invest into and walk in. And so it took a little while, but we took the baby steps. And today, a good portion of their business is actually from the tier 2 cities, basically, because the
So
offering
yeah,
is very different.
right. So tier two would be a new market for that
It's a new
company in that sense.
market, yes, for the same product line which they have. And also, what is happening is the pricing is better. The client handling is better, and the implementation modeling is different. So those are the opportunities. I would say the early stage entries. The first comers into that market, they always have an advantage.
Aman, I hope that has answered your question and in terms of how Bala has taken that approach for a new market for his client. So, typically, what is the nature of your engagement? Do you work out of their office? I mean, how does the nature of the engagement happen? How at what level do you deal in the company and so?
So it is more with the so the nature of the model is very clear, that I get into ideally a long-term engagement of at least we say that for anything substantial and significant to be seen as happening is we need to invest at least about 6 to 12 months. So the
Right.
ideal period is about 12 months, and wherein we decide on the number of hours that I spend with the company, depending upon. So that's a give and take sort of a model. But ideally, it is half a day a week sort of a model, wherein
Okay.
I do the reviewing, I do the monitoring, and then I do the guidance part of it, and then making sure. There used to be a client for whom I used to do daily half an hour.
Oh,
Because
half an hour
their
a week.
requirement was different, because he wanted that, somebody should be monitoring their sales and marketing team on a daily basis and not on a weekly basis and stuff like that. So it is a give and take. It's a flexible model. But
Right.
essentially, I would say the higher end of it is half a day max at a week's model.
Half a day a week. I think that's fine. I mean, because considering that there are thousands of things that any organization does, I think half a day devoted to growth a week should be. I mean, I would think Mutamoti should be okay, right? I mean,
And
in terms of
also, Vipul, this is what is decided on. But what happens is when you talk about growth, and for me, my exciting thing is, as I said, I work on areas like partnerships and collaborations. And if there is an opportunity which pops up, I won't wait for my half a day to come up.
correct. Absolutely.
I would disturb the business owner to say that there is an opportunity and let's go for it. So so that
That's
investment already happens any which
right.
ways.
Okay, so then
But
the very
okay,
interesting.
let me clarify it further.
Okay.
I think what they want to know is my model is in terms of a retainership. So which means this is like a retainership for a
Retainer
period of
model.
12 months. And in some cases we take it up as a challenge or in terms of a project. Okay. So we say, for example, especially technology related areas. Okay. So they say that, okay, fine, can we have this implemented in the next 4 to 6 months? And then we decide on a success fee. Or if we say building up, four solid partnerships in these markets, and if those four are achieved, so there is a fixed
Success.
retainership and mutually agreed upon success fee, which is, at the end of the success being achieved.
So I have two questions which I'm linking. So one is my own question, and there's one question which Nisha has asked. So I'll combine those two. So my question to you was going to be: so what are some of the metrics that you track to measure your success with the client engagement? And her question is slightly related, which is why I'm asking you. So her question is: sometimes businesses get so caught up in their day-to-day activity that they forget to plan for growth. So what would be your advice for them? And the reason I'm asking you is sometimes, it could be a matter of measurement. So how do you actually, track your success for your customer, and how do you make sure that they don't get caught away in their day-to-day activity, and they wake up only, and they don't wake up the previous night of your meeting with them on the next day, and suddenly things start falling. So are there things that
Okay.
you track on a regular basis?
So let me try and get your question first. What are the metrics which you said? Now, these metrics, they are different for different engagements. So, for
Right.
example, as I mentioned in the beginning, when I look at those four buckets, so, if sales and marketing is one area that I'm actively working on, then by default, the amount of, revenue generated on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly period. And this is again based on the target that the organization has set for themselves. Okay. So it's not that so I don't put my neck on line to see the revenue being, the targets being achieved, but I'm making sure that the team is working on a way that the long-term target which has been set for the organization is being achieved, and that is being monitored. So sales and marketing is one area. When you look at people, as a bucket, then we are trying to see that do we have the right set of people, and if not, by when should we have, so the metrics there is, do we have manpower, or do we have people to manage all aspects of the business so that there is no pitfall. So we say that, okay, fine, over the next 4 months we want to make sure that these 8 positions are created and filled and delivering. So now that's a target which we have taken on to ourselves, that within 4 months, we need to have this complete team in place. Okay. Similarly, in terms of technology, again, the target is more to do, the metrics is how soon have we been able to implement this technology, or if it is a technology which is already running, the metrics that we put on is to see that how are we using that existing technology to help us with the data or the analytics and entities like that. Do we have a dashboard, or can we create one, etc., etc. So we define these things in the beginning itself to say that, okay, over the next 3 months, we need to achieve this. Next 6 months, we need to achieve this, and then work around making sure that those things are taken care of, basically. The second part of the question, again, as I said, a lot of times the business owners, as you rightly, as she's rightly said, Isha, right? That's
Nisha, yeah.
right. So, rightly said that they get consumed by the day-to-day
Day to day.
operative work, that they forget the long-term thing. And that is where, if you remember the example that I gave you in the beginning, there was a business owner who said that, hey, listen, I know I'm growing, and things are happening. So every day there is a firefighting, and, things are happening. At the end of the year, I realize I've grown 10 to 12% or 15%. But my thing is, I want to focus on the larger thing, which means it's a long-term goal,
Correct.
and for achieving that, he needed to make sure that the processes are in place here. So what we try and help those types of businesses is to make sure that they have adequate systems in place. processes in place, checks in place to make sure that everybody has to do what they have to do on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. And if everybody does what they are required to do, automatically the results will follow. So I think it's more to do with the timely reviews, timely pivoting, and timely, correction of course
Connection.
correction, as you would say. So those are
Oh,
the things which is incorporated into the system, so that the business owner at the end of the year doesn't feel that, hey, you know what, one more year has gone by and I'm still where I am. So that doesn't happen.
a regular tracking mechanism has been put into place. It will differ from project to project, obviously.
And
Or what
a
to
serious tracking mechanism which includes where growth is an inclusive part of that objective.
Today we are having a lot of good questions. So I'll take one more, Bala, with your permission.
Please.
Uh, so this is a question from Mayuri. Uh, so any common fear that you see in businesses when it comes to growth? It's a question she has. So are there any common fears that you see in businesses when it comes to growth? And when she says that, I guess she means the owners or the top team of businesses. And she says in her experience, personal business owners, which I guess will mean small business owners, hesitate to hire a team and work on their own.
So I think she has answered the question in her own ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, in your experience, I mean, I'm sure you
So
come across such people. So
absolutely, absolutely. It's
how do
very
you
common. It's very common.
deal with that?
So right. So, the first fear which I have realized most of the business owners have it is that they have this mindset that if I don't do it by myself or I don't look into it by myself, nobody else can do it better than me. That whole syndrome of मैं नहीं करूंगा तो कोई और मेरे मेरे जैसा कर नहीं सकता, top sort of a thing. Okay. So, it's very important for us to unlock that mindset and keep it aside and say that, yes, you are the best, but you're not growing. Okay. So for you to grow, allow somebody else to handle it. They may not be the best in the business, but help them become the best. That is what a good leader can be, right? So, so the idea is all about helping business owners realize that they just can't focus on just doing a business and have to be a good leader to develop a team, be able to delegate and help the team grow so that the business grows. That is one fear which I've. The other thing which I've generally found, and it is connected to this first one which I said,
Yes.
I have come across very few people who are willing to pay the price for the most qualified or the most experienced person required for their business. Okay, so they will always try to keep the budget in mind and then expect that they need to get the best guy to work upon. In this, Vipul, with your permission, I just wanted to share one, so, the good part of being where I am is I get to learn a lot from the business owners I run into. And I
Yeah.
remember, so there is this business owner friend of mine in Dubai. And, in 11 years flat, he started a business, and in 11 years flat, he is running a business which is worth more than $700 million. Okay. And in my enthusiasm of figuring out what he did, how he did, why he did, etc., I asked him a very simple, straightforward question: how large is your team? Okay, and he said, "Bala, I have a team of 34 people."
Okay.
And I said, "Wow,
700 million.
34 people working on a business model which is, which is generating. I mean, a company running a company which is something." And he made one statement. He said, "Bala, I make sure that I hire the best resource in the world to work for my company, no matter what the cost is. So I make sure I invest in the best minds to work for my company, because better than that, I have done." And also, he shared something beyond that, which really sort of caught my attention when he said that out of these 34, Bala, at least 12 people, they take home a larger salary than me myself.
Wow. Okay.
That was amazing. He said, I may be the owner of the company, but when you look at it from a salary perspective, he said, at least 12 people, I have made sure that they are taking home a salary which is larger than mine,
Wow.
what I
Okay.
carry. That's the mindset. Look at the mindset.
That takes a lot of doing. That
Exactly.
takes a lot of doing. I
So
agree.
that there you go. So people should, be able to invest, or rather, come out of that mindset that, be able to hire people, invest in the growth journey.
So, Mayuri, if you heard the answer, the next thing you should go and tell your bosses, I want to draw a salary bigger than yours. How do I do it? And of course, reach there, deserve that salary, obviously, and reach there and, achieve that. So I hope it's answered your question. So, Bala, you've been doing this now for a very, very long time. And, I'm sure there are times when you are, very happy with what you're doing. Sometimes you might be facing disappointments also because no matter how hard all of you try, things don't work out. But there might be something in each assignment that gives you joy, satisfaction of having achieved something. So, what is your greatest joy in your engagement with your customers?
So, one common thing which I've realized having worked for different types of companies, different types of business owners, is that somewhere down the line, maybe it's the way I am as a person, but I see that my strength is in terms of building up very strong relationships. Okay. So there are companies where I have worked and moved on, but still there would be certain employees who would be calling me up on a regular basis to say that, sir, this is where I am. I want to do this. Can you guide me? I know you are no longer with us. That is fine, but sort of thing. So what I really enjoy working with different type of companies, and then my key takeaways, I somehow realized that it's the relationship. So never would an engagement be stopped for a SAR reason, but for practical issues. But having said that, relationships is what I have earned, if I were to use the word, in this journey of mine. That's what I enjoy.
The relationship with your customers and people who you've engaged with
Yes.
is your greatest joy. Great. Okay, so I know you've spoken about a few success stories, but if you can tell us a couple of success stories, in your journey so far, which you think stand out. I mean, this is the most outstanding thing I've done. There are one or two. For shortage of time, let's keep it to maximum of two. Uh, where you think, this is a case study I would like to tell the world.
So, one of it is, something which I just told you about 15 minutes back when I said there was a business owner who's looking at this sort of a model. That is one. I mean, apart from that, I remember, so one of my most favorite clients has been a US based client who was looking into setting up operations in India, and they were into the technology space. And technology is something which I feel very comfortable aligning very quickly with. And I was representing them in India, and we work together closely for more than 3 years, I think close to about 4 years. And the success for them was, they were, one of the leading players at that time in terms of mobile payment solutions. And they had a platform which they were outsourcing it to different, on which various solutions could be hosted. And the pride of the moment was we did, so we I could help them get aligned with an Accenture in India, who in turn positioned their solution to SBI when they wanted to launch their first mobile payment solutions. I'm talking of back in 2013. Okay. So, how that whole thing grew. So it's not that we could have never gone to an SBI directly. Okay. Because we are,
Right.
I mean, this company is it's a startup from the US, very small company, but they had a solution which, a big brother like Accenture accepted it, and they sort of validated it, and then they dovetailed it into the larger project, and then we implemented it for SBI. So, Accenture by itself, a big name, and then, SBI by itself, another name. So that's one big, very successful story that I would like to talk about.
Okay.
Another is, again, as I said, there is this Dubai-based client of mine who worked with me for the first 3 years between 2013 to 2015, 16, and then they moved on and then came back again last year after a gap of 4 years and said that, Bala, we are on a different trajectory and we now need your services even more than what we did earlier. So now the engagement is different. So it's a very nice feeling, when the client comes back to you and say that, thanks to what you did for us earlier, and over the years we have evolved. So that's another story which is close to my heart. And that's an engagement which has restarted in a way where I'm helping them. And, as I said, I spend a lot of time, frequent time in Dubai these days.
Correct. Other than, of course, your own business, you also are engaged with a not-for-profit organization in the area of organ donation. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because you spent considerable amount of your time working on that, right? And so if you can tell us more about this part of.
So, Vipul, this is again a very interesting thing because it came to me more like, business growth, business development sort of an engagement at 4 years ago. And the good part of it is because it is, as I said, I mean, as you rightly said, it's a non-profit organization. So it's an organization called Transplant Help the Poor Foundation. And we are a foundation where we help extremely poor patients who need heart, liver, and kidney transplants, and we help them financially. Okay. Now, where does the magic work, and why is it? I mean, apart from the philanthropic and the social angle to it, what keeps me excited and interesting is that I work very closely with very large corporations and foundations on the other side. So working very closely with the Asim Premji Foundation and ICICI Foundation, etc. So which gives me my that little leeway to be connected to the corporate world. Coming from that world, you just don't want to let it go. So that it helps me to be connected to the corporate world in a good way. And on the other hand, over these last 4 years, we have step by step built our relationship with more than 70 hospitals pan India who conduct these transplant surgeries. So there again, you are, dealing with the senior management team and each, trying to understand how, the dynamics are in the healthcare. So it's a good balance. And so that's that's the engagement that I'm associated with now for more than 4 years. And it's very, very fulfilling in its own ways.
Question. I mean, both. I mean, if I can call the second one a profession, your not-for-profit work as well as your regular business work, means that you constantly interacting with people. And networking is one of your biggest strengths. In fact, when I joined active networking, you are among the people who I looked up to in terms of advice and counsel. And, So tell us a little bit about your journey as a network. You've been doing, you've been part of BNI for a longest time that I know. So just tell us a bit about your journey as a business network.
Well, so honestly, it's not the organization, it's not this thing. So I think it's got a lot to do with with my nature. Okay. So I enjoy meeting people, I enjoy dealing with people and knowing people, let's put it that way. Okay. And which helps me to build relationships. Okay. And thanks to now this entrepreneurial journey, and I have also evolved into a better, for quote unquote, what you just mentioned, networker. So the what I've realized is, if I keep my intentions of, and every interaction for me is to see how I can help add value to the person in front of me. Doesn't matter, what is the profile of that person, where is he coming from, what is his background. But if there is any ways I can help add value. Now, when I go with that mindset, I realize that I'm able to build very strong relationships, and it has always helped me. So, it's like saying that, tell me what I can do for you. So, and believe me, it sort of opens the floodgate, because generally, people are very, when you meet somebody for the first time and So everybody is very guarded, let's put it that way,
Right.
before revealing things. But, the best way of breaking that shackle is to say that, hey, great meeting you. Let me know this is what I do and tell me how I can help you in whatever you are doing, you know. So that's something which I do very actively and I really enjoy being part of it.
So asking how I can help you is is the secret of your business network. So you wherever
So
you
with
meet
a clear
somebody, you
mindset that, how I can help add value to this
value.
interaction, period.
Correct. And then of course go ahead and do that. So yeah, so that's the key, and giving before you actually receive something is a very component of doing it. So what would be your advice, Bala, to young networkers who are listening to you today, because we're speaking to you primarily because you're a business network. What would be your advice? And also to some old ones like me, and what would you advise on on the importance of networking, how to go about
So my only guidance would be in my experience. Again,
it?
I'm no master on this, or I'm nobody to sort of talk big on this. But all I can say is that doesn't matter what stage of life you are in your profession, it's important that you start building your network as early as possible. Okay. So to my daughters, for example, one of them passed out of college 3 years ago, and she's now working in a large corporation. My younger one is still in college third year. And I have told them very actively that, be on LinkedIn, be meet up people, get connected to people, and let the world know what you're doing and how you are there to help add value. So
Right.
start building your network as early as you can. Doesn't matter what profession, what engagement, and at what life stage are you in at. And when you're building the network, most important thing is, network is not all about going and collecting visiting cards. A lot of people go for conventions and events and exhibitions and say that, "Ore, sara din ghum liya," and this is, that's not
That's
network.
step one. Yeah, that's step one.
Okay, the idea is to see how you can genuinely connect to people and continue to be in touch with them. So,
Right.
that's so building relationships is the primary thing, without any key objective to begin with. So it is not that, because that comes out immediately. The minute you are trying to get in touch with somebody because you have an intention to ask that person for help, or a job or a product or a selling, so the more
You can miss
salesy
out.
you are, the more naked you are. So, that's the basic idea. And then, of course, whatever we do, building relationships, one of the key things is to be consistent.
Right.
So, it's not the flavor of the month for this month, and then for the next 6 months, I'm not doing anything. And then
Right.
again, I get back into it. It's not that. So, idea is to build your relationships no matter which stage of life you are in your profession. Uh, do it cautiously, do it well, and don't do it randomly. That is very important. And the other thing is be consistent. Period.
So do it regularly. Don't do it as a spits and stops, and
Yeah.
do it consistently.
Yeah,
Right.
and don't do it with a
With the
malified purpose
intention.
that I need to get connected with this person because I know that he's a big guy there. It'll never work beyond a certain stage.
I'll have one last question here, which has come from Rajesh Mishra. How do you balance risk taking with a stable growth trajectory?
In my experience, I don't think there is one simple formula for this. Okay. Very clearly, depending upon what line of business you are in, and most importantly, what is your personal goal for your own business? So if I'm happy achieving, this as my business goal for the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, then I need to only take that much of steps. But then if I need to achieve, if my ambition is big, then my risk taking ability also has to be big. So I cannot expect to have a very ambitious plan but say that, hey, listen, I don't have monies to spend, or I have to be very cautious. These two things can't go simultaneously. So you have to take the risk of
Interrelated.
living it up to achieve your own goals that you have set for your own business. So that happens.
Okay, so Rajesh, I hope that has answered your question. So what, Bala, uh, if I've heard you right, what you're saying is you need to balance it, but at the same time, one cannot be at the cost of the other. So risk taking and stable growth go hand in hand.
Yes, because if your
Especially if
goals are big,
goals are
then essentially you need to take large risks and stay by it, stick by it. And naturally, see, there is a difference between reckless risk taking and calculated risk taking. Okay,
Right.
so bigger the goals, bigger the calculation, and bigger the calculated risk that you should take. If you don't take the risk, you don't deserve to be achieving those big dreams any which ways.
So that's it for today, Bala. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate your taking the time out of your very, very busy schedule. I know that a week later you would have been in Dubai, and which is the reason you
There are
spared the time for us today. So thank you very much on behalf of the entire Thinkley team and on my personal behalf as well. And wish you a safe trip to Dubai and back.
Thank you so
And
much, Vipul.
we'll
Thank you
catch up
so
in
much. It's
person when
always
you
a
get back.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
always a pleasure. And as I always say, if there is any ways I can continue to help add value to any one of you all there, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you.